key challenges which industry is going to face in the long run, especially because of the sensitization we've had on climate change, is that there's an increasing realization that biodiversity is a key element in ensuring long-term survival of industry itself. So businesses have come together, and this is part of the India's part of the initiative to build a network and a forum by which we commit ourselves voluntarily to go on the path to build a kind of a business to biodiversity linkage in such a manner that it sort of enhances the biodiversity. And companies voluntarily are committing to this journey because we believe that in the long run, it's in the interest of the companies, it's also in the interest of the country. And this also would, in terms of help the country achieve the targets which it has set itself in various multilateral forums, be it the COP16 or also be it the IG the commitments which are made. All these commitments we would be able to fulfill through this. What we've done is we brought in a collection of a group of companies which are committed to this cause, and we voluntarily have come together to start this initiative. We are inviting other members of the Indian industry to join this initiative, and today being the International Biodiversity Day, we will be launching this initiative publicly for the first time. There are 12 companies which have already signed up voluntarily to this program and voluntarily submitted themselves to commit to the charter which we have jointly framed, which commits us to the commitments government has made, which commits us to the international norms which have been set out, and also commits us to good principles of the way we want to run the company. And we are also in the process of another 12 more companies which are in the progress of becoming signatories, and these are large companies spread across groups like Tata, Godrej, and multinational companies like Rio Tinto. And we have all come together to make sure that this becomes a great success story going forward. The key issues which we are facing are the stress on natural resource, the stress on water resource, the impact on the air quality, the impact on the general livelihood of communities around us. So it has a very holistic impact, and we are delighted that this initiative is moved in the direction. As I said, this is going to help with three major constituents. It's going to help, firstly, the companies themselves, so it is in their self-interest. Secondly, it is going to help the environment within which we operate, that is the communities, and making sure that their ecosystem is not disturbed. And lastly, it is also going to help at the country level and at the world level, making sure the world is a better place. There are some which are extremely immediately impacting the biodiversity. There are some which are dependent completely on biodiversity. There are some which are not impacting, not immediately disturbing the biodiversity, some which are far removed. They fall in four buckets. The companies with whom the biodiversity is critical are those which depend on forest resources, those which depend on, let's say, the natural resources. Like if you look at a company like Dabur, if you look at companies which are in the food and the nutrition, nourishment space, they do depend a lot on the success of ensuring the biodiversity agenda is preserved. Then the second category is the bunch of companies which they need to do what they do, but at the same time they can do it better without destroying the biodiversity. These are extractive industries. So when I say extractive industries, these are companies which would be in mining, in anything which sort of you remove resources from the earth. So I think for them it makes immense sense to address this issue, because it not only disturbs the area of the operation, it also disturbs the livelihood of people around. So it's an entire ecosystem they have to preserve. Thirdly, I would say the companies which are slightly far removed. These are companies which take the material which is made by these extractive industries and then transform them. But for them, it is important to ensure that the entire supply chain is sanitized. So if you look at a tea company or a coffee company, they may not have immediate issue of biodiversity in their own operation, but if they go to the plantation, where the plantations created in a rich biodiverse area, and what impact those plantations are having. Obviously, you've taken over natural forest cover and then have converted them into plantations. How do you preserve biodiversity in such a, I think it's a deep topic for all of us, and which is one of the reasons why all types of companies in the first three buckets are clearly seeing this as a issue they need to address. Then when you talk about companies which are, let's say, in software, they may not immediately have an issue on biodiversity, but for them it's a business opportunity. creating tools and knowledge, let's say a bank of issues, how to deal with this. They are the best equipped to do. So even they are interested in partnering to see that, so they see a business opportunity in partnering with these companies to see what they could do in that right. So I see this as a movement which has started. Obviously, many of us have been insensitive in the past. I think time has come for us to be sensitive and address this issue. Certainly the new CSR bill is going to help, but companies which have traditionally been conscious have not dependent on the bill to do the spending. I think CSR in one way, the commitment which companies do and may do in future would do a lot with the communities. The reason why we are emphasizing environment doesn't have a voice. A tree cannot come and tell me that shout tomorrow that it's getting destroyed. A community can come and protest. Hence, this is a movement which I think we have to go beyond immediate external impact and come from internal consciousness to sort of deliver on this. And companies which have been conscious, the good companies, most of them are signatories today because the first ones to come in are people who believe, and they truly do it not because of the bill. Certainly, as the panel here, we have discussed this, we would impress upon the government that what types of spending in the area of biodiversity should fall for the CSR spending which is allowed by government, so that companies can take benefit of that, so that they can at least do it consciously because they would have spent it anyway on some other area. This is an area of impact. So it's going to help. But in my view, I think this is the shift to using the company's resources to preserve the biodiversity has to be driven from inside, with a belief that it is going to impact the environment in the long run, and that environmental impact has an impact on the company. You cannot draw a clear linkage today, but certainly I think if you take a 20-year span, it will have a linkage. Being part of a chemical company, I think we are we don't have any problems in admitting no one wants us, no one likes us. They all use our products, but they don't want it. And for us, the issue of being sustainable is at the very heart of what we want to do. And that is critical, and that's one of the reasons why we engaged with this. We also have operations in a state, Gujarat, which is very arid state, doesn't receive enough rainfall, and because of that it's a very harsh environment. And for making sure that the environment is kind and making sure that the water availability is improved, increased, we've had to do several initiatives. And all these initiatives have led us to believe that this is an area we should work on, and we've taken several steps in that direction. Firstly, for example, we worked with Government of Gujarat on the Gir forest lion conservation, especially making sure that the wells were well covered. Inside Gir forest, there are a lot of wells and these lions would fall, and I think that's a program government ran, and we partnered with the Gujarat government on that. In addition to that, we have had a partnership with the Gujarat government on the mangrove afforestation, wherein we have worked with them to make sure that wherever mangroves have been depleted, we have been able to get them going again for the protection of the coastline. Gujarat, as you know, has the longest coastline in India, and I think protection of coastline is very critical to avoid salinity ingress, so that farmers don't face the impact of the seawater ingressing into the aquifer. The third area we worked on is with the fishermen, and this was on the whale shark project, which is a species which comes to Indian shores. It's the largest fish, and we have made sure that the fishermen are educated enough to release this fish. They can't bring it to market and sell it, but they would catch it and kill it. But it comes near the Indian shore when the female whale is pregnant. So you're not only killing the mother, you're also killing the child. So now we have actually worked out a program with Government of Gujarat by which the fishermen get paid for the net, because he loses the net. In case this fish comes in his net, he has to cut the net and release the fish. Then his net is gone. So he just has to give a proof that he has released the fish. The government reimburses the cost of the net so that his livelihood doesn't go. And that's been a very successful program which we finished 5 years. So we think that broadly Gujarat has been a playground of a very sensitive environment, which has allowed us to build the consciousness and gain an experience. that experience has helped me also to sort of gain an energy, enthusiasm to work in this field, and I'm glad that CII has taken this initiative to work with the Government of India to move forward on the industry, business and biodiversity initiative, and I'm delighted, and I think it's one of great responsibilities which I would contribute in whichever way I could. That's the reason I took this up. Fundamentally, if you look at what is biodiversity, one of the most least understood stuff. If you look at the pillars of what environment is, I speak to my team, people around. It is 4 pillars broadly. When we talk about environment, you talk about water, you talk about carbon, you talk about energy efficiency, you talk about the 4th pillar, which is waste reduction. This everyone understands, everyone does this. But at the base of these 4 pillars, the foundation is actually biodiversity. When you do all this, the impact you're doing is to make sure you're protecting the biodiversity, and I think it's a least understood subject. So I don't claim to have great knowledge. As I said, I'm learning about this. But the fun part is that I get to work with many companies which have deeper knowledge of the subject, and also with experts who know this more. And all of us, each one of us who are in this biodiversity panel, are learning from each other. And this is not a perfect science like the way some of the other fields have become. For example, energy efficiency is much more advanced than biodiversity is. So to that extent, I think we are all committed people who have been interested from the past. If you ask me what is one particular event, I can't recall one. So I don't want to say what the policy of the government will be. I think government is in every right to frame its own policy, and I can only give you from experience. And this is a data point you could check out. Gujarat is the 4th provincial state in the world to have a department on climate change. It is the first in Asia to do so. And because of the sensitive nature of the coastline and the sensitive nature of the eco zones which they operate in, I think that state has had quite a progressive policies. Clearly, I think it is not one against the other. It is finding the golden mean, making sure that the livelihoods are protected. At the same time, we have a situation where the ecosystem and the diversity does not suffer. And that is a difficult path one has to travel. All I can say is, from our experience, the agenda can be addressed, but it needs open mind from both sides. It cannot be, if you touch this, nothing else will happen. Then world doesn't move. So the challenge, which I think is very clear in front of us, is creating jobs. Jobs have to be created by development and growth. But when you talk about development, you've got to talk about sustainable development. The moment you say my definition of development is sustainable development, then one of the filters you apply is the application of the biodiversity ecological filter. And I think it's a natural consequence of doing that. Great companies have done this, and it's possible to do. So in my view, it is not that it's one against the other.